there it is. Today's session, which will highlight and focus on our Aspiring Leaders of Color program. We are now in year 3. I had a chance to dine and commune early last night with Dr. Nadine Richards. She spearheaded and started this. Quick background: the program came out because we were in a lot of conversations that were asking about, or just saying that we don't see a lot of people from the global majority applying for international school leadership positions. I think by the time we got to conversation number 5, we were like, okay, clearly we need a program that focuses on and amplifies folks who identify as BIPOC, folks who identify from different identities. And Nadine and I collaborated together. She really honed in on the curriculum. And the idea was to bring, as Madeline Masita Hyde, she's one of our quote unquote elders, folks who are either retired, currently international school heads, leaders, directors, in those different positions on as mentors to work one-on-one with mentees, folks who are interested in pursuing leadership. And leadership, a lot of times we hear leadership in education, we think principal, assistant principal. Not necessarily that. It could be become a curriculum head. It could be become a curriculum coach. It could be become a director of DEIJ, a team leader. So who want to matriculate into a leadership position in an international school space. We started off year 1 with 7 folks, year 2 with 12 folks. We are now with our largest cohort to date with 15 folks. The great part is we have folks that are now moving into those positions. Again, some folks are ready. Some folks are like, it's an opportunity for growth. It might not be a right now I'm ready to move, and that's actually fine. We're working on an alumni aspect. So folks who went through the program, we're going to have it's like a little mini association advisory who will give us feedback, but also gather, because we reach out to the folks just to see sort of where they're at, things they need. So even once you sort of quote unquote graduate, we're still not done with you. We still check in with you. We still amplify you in the work you're doing, but also share opportunities. So there's that aspect of you can come back. We've had folks who went through and been mentees who want to come back and be mentors, who come back and speak at our community sessions. So that's one thing we do. We do the one-on-one mentoring, and then we host monthly community sessions with folks from around international schools on a wide range of topics. But enough for me. We want you to hear from some folks who have been doing the programs. I know Rama was year 2 cohort. Nayang was the inaugural year 1, I don't want to say, but the trial getting started. So her and Tanai Nike, who could not be here, he left a video, which is going to share their experiences, and then we'll just close with a Q&A. Again, thank you all for joining us. I'll turn over to Nayang.
Hi, everybody. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there live online for the ALOC webinar. My name is Tanai Naik. I am the secondary school deputy principal for teaching and learning at the United Nations International School of Hanoi. As you might know, our school recently hosted the ALOC conference for the first time in person, which was just an incredible opportunity to bring so many people that I know I look up to and people that we've connected with over the years in person at really just a wonderful event. I'm sorry, like I said, I can't be here in person or online and live because I'm on spring break, and where I'm at unfortunately doesn't have very good internet. But I did commit to sharing a few impressions that I had and just sort of thoughts and reflections from having been part of the first aspiring, maybe first or second aspiring leaders of color cohort. And really right off the jump, it was an incredible opportunity just to build connection. I had a chance to connect with a leader, someone who I'd known a little bit about, just sort of reputationally, but just sort of a chance to get to know them on a one-on-one level was absolutely wonderful. My mentor was Dr. Nigel Winard, and one of the things that we really spent a lot of time talking about was just kind of the ins and outs of what it means to be a school leader and all those things they don't really teach you about in teacher training programs. So for example, Nigel really gave me some great insights on board management. Managing a board is something that I gather is a significant part of what it means to be an international school leader, particularly at the headship or maybe the principal level. And when I think about my experience, I'm a secondary school deputy principal, so I'm not super high up the org chart, but I'm, there's some layers in terms of where I'm sit. I don't get regular access to the board, and although I've been asked to do presentations to them, like I don't really manage the board. So it was a really interesting insight to say, like, if I have a desire to become a senior leader, either principal, deputy head, or even a head at some point, what are the gaps that I need to fill in terms of my skill set and my experience that need to be kind of like something that I can talk to in an interview. And so just Nigel really helping me like understand where those gaps were in my experience. And those gaps aren't because of like anything that I did or didn't do. It's just sort of the natural cycle of like when you're in the classroom, you're not really focused on, for example, board management or operations and buildings and facilities or managing a budget. So those were the things that like having those one-on-one conversations with Nigel was really, really super helpful for me. In fact, coming out of my experience working with Nigel, I actually then was able to connect with a group of with a group of schools in Ontario where I used to work before coming internationally, and have actually found myself sitting on a board committee related to DEI work. And that in and of itself has been incredibly valuable learning. And now something that I feel like if I were to pursue a more senior position that required a question or ability to answer the question about managing a board, being part of a board, or at least being part of a board committee, gives me something concrete that I can speak to. And funnily enough, from time to time in the conversations I have with my head, I share my experiences being part of the committee that I'm on in terms of sort of balancing and understanding like just sort of the trials and tribulations of managing complex organizations. So that was a really, really helpful piece. And again, I mentioned and referred to other things, sort of the pieces around operations, finance, budgeting, just sort of like where to kind of find opportunities to develop that skill set. Now, recognize also that when I met with Nigel and when he was my mentor, the program was happening during COVID and like really brutal school lockdowns and all of the trials and tribulations, again, of like being kind of immersed in the COVID experience. So just having someone to like kind of reflect with and pause and like, hey, we have to do this in our context. Have you had a chance to do that? If you have, what have been some of the pros and cons of that? Where have you found that your faculties really sort of struggled with this element of the COVID experience? I mean, we struggled with all of it, but where was it particularly heightened? And having someone outside of your organization to like bounce and reflect and share those ideas with felt very objective, because I think in the moment, you're like kind of in the moment of crisis, it feels very emotional. So someone who is able to step back and say, well, actually, if you think about it in this way, or if you go down this road, here are some things you might want to be aware of. So again, really valuable insight and advice that Nigel was able to provide in terms of managing a school through COVID, and in his context where there were many things that were similar to us, what we're experiencing in Vietnam, and in another sense very different. The other piece that I think was also really important is at the time, I was sort of like bouncing around the idea of like, oh, should I pursue an educational doctorate? Do I need further degrees in advancement? Like what might I need in terms of credentials to really, that if I decide to make a step in an upward trajectory, that I feel like I've kind of covered my bases. And he was actually super, super helpful and offered some really wonderful insights in terms of like helping me decide, do I go down a PhD road? What are the pros and cons of that in the context of the work that I do? Versus what are the pros and cons of pursuing like an educational doctorate or like a more professional based program. And I really appreciated that even before I got into the program that I'm currently in, and I decided to go down the EDD road. What Nigel was able to do was even give me some like resources and names of books and sort of and schemas of thinking that I was like already aware of, because when I got into my program, they were referring to things that Nigel had already told me about. And I was like, oh yeah, that was really helpful just in terms of like getting a leg up in terms of in being that program. So like I said, I have nothing but really positive things to say about it. I think the COVID times being where we were, and it was the first stages of the course, I didn't get a chance to maybe interact with my fellow cohort members as much as I would have liked to. And maybe the program has grown since then, and that's great. At a later point, it would be wonderful to step in and support the program through a mentorship and leadership role. And I know other people that have been through the program have had the opportunity to meet their mentors in person. I did not have or have not yet had that opportunity. I hope that comes around. at some point, but just knowing that, there are now people who can sort of be in your corner and advocate for you and can speak to your experience. I think one of the things that is obviously part of the foundational ethos of ALOC is uplifting and raising voices of those who've been marginalized, particularly then in the realm of leadership. So having the opportunity to be both recognized as an aspiring leader of color, which is a wonderful thing, and I appreciate that recognition. It's also having someone, when it comes time to maybe looking for another opportunity, there are other people who can attest to the work that I've done in and out of schools in terms of supporting that work. So overall, I found it to be an incredibly valuable, really robust and rich experience. And like I said, I can only imagine the program has grown since the 3 or 4 years ago when I did it, and I imagine it's even further along at this point as well. So I will ask Kevin to share my email address out, and I would welcome the opportunity for you to reach out if you want to learn more about my specific experiences, or there are things you were curious would like me to dig into a little bit more. If you are curious about the school that I work in or my own educational journey. I think the other thing I'll quickly mention is that one of the reasons I was curious and inspired to go into or apply to be part of the program was actually my career has been incredibly varied. I've spent time as a diploma program coordinator. I've spent time as director of curriculum, vice principal. Before I moved into the role that I'm in right now, which is the teaching and learning role, I was effectively the director of experiential learning. So I had these really wide kind of experiences, wide range of experiences in my career. And so having a place to kind of harness and channel that energy and that experience into something that I could feel like I could be coherent about in explaining was also really a valuable part of the application process. I felt like I was able to really rationalize and think through what were the different parts of the experiences that I've had. And when I applied, I think I'd only been at the school that I'm currently in for maybe 4 or 5 months at that point. So it really gave me a chance to reflect and think about my experiences and where I was and where I hope to go in the future. So thank you again for the opportunity to share just a little bit of my story, and I always remain open to those of you that want to reach out. I moved away from X or Twitter, but certainly you can find me on email, and I'm happy to share more. So thank you very much, and good luck to all of you that are intending to pursue this incredibly wonderful program.
Awesome. Thanks, Nayan. I'll turn it over to you. And I put Tanai's email in the chat, everyone.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. Hi, everyone. My name is Nayan Kim Weaver. My pronouns are they, she. I was in the inaugural group with Tanai. I guess he doesn't quite remember. That's okay. It was an amazing experience. I'm happy to answer questions. I'd rather answer questions more than just babble for a bit. But my mentor was Jessica Wei Huang, and for me, the experience was life-changing. Nadine's program is solid. We have a stretch assignment, which really changed my outlook on how this work is done. So yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions. So Loretta asked how our mentors and mentees paired up. That's behind that's above my purview. Kevin, do you want to tackle that one?
You are hilarious. So what we do, Loretta, great question. We try to, as much as possible, on the application, what we do, and we'll send anyone who registered for the session, we'll send you actually will be the first ones to get the application for 24, 25. So if people don't know that though, because the application will come out this week, but you'll get it tomorrow. So what we do is we try, Nadine and I look and see on the application, we ask you sort of a future position. So where do you see yourself or something you want to do? So if you identify, oh, I'm interested in becoming a director of teaching and learning, director of curriculum, assistant principal, whatever it might be, we try to match that mentor with that, who has that position. So match with the mentor who has a position which you aspire to become. And then we try as much as possible, again, geographically. So if you're based in Europe, we try to match you with a mentor who has a position you're interested in, but also in the same geographical location. Does it always happen? No, but 90% of the time it does in terms of the matches. So yeah, that's how the sort of the working of that goes. And then with the mentors, we Nadine and I, we started to do mentor meetups. We obviously do one-on-ones when they need them. and check-ins with them. And then we do like some surveys to get feedback from the mentees and mentors during the course of the year as well. What you sorry
I-
for? I was like, what you sorry for?
Yeah, I don't know. Thank you for the good question, Loretta. I felt like the universe came together for me and Jessica to meet. So as we got paired up, we both happened to move to Singapore, and I went to one UWC campus. She went to the other. So I learned so much from her, how to like arrive at a new place and start creating, like earning social capital, seeing the system for what it is. And it was just so helpful having someone to share my experiences with, not just as a new teacher at the school, but we also shared some identities. Like I've never had a woman of color as a mentor. So having her was life-changing. And she's also a mom. She's also a partner of someone that has privileged identities. So there were so many experiences that, I don't know, Nadine and Kevin, you did magic. Like we were matched up perfectly. And since then, you know, we're still in touch. We're in the same PhD program in the Education for Social Justice. We've, as families, like we've gone to Thailand together on a trip. Yeah, so my match was absolutely perfect. Any other questions?
And that's definitely a
Okay.
hope that you know, like I think Tana was saying, like being able to meet and connect. And again, it's about more than the year. It's like we really want that relationship, that rapport. We want folks that are going to be, again, speaking your name in rooms that you might not be in. We want to make sure that it's professional, but it's also personal too. And that's, I mean, this is like ideal. And like we've now, I know Dr. Ann Robinson and Renee recently met at AAIE conference. So we're now getting those posts. Margaret met with her mentor, Natasha. So it's folks are, because we're virtual. And so unless people are right direct in that same country, they'll meet face to face, or at conferences, people are meeting, we're finding, but during like holidays and things, people are meeting up, which has been great.
Yeah, that work is definitely real. And even part of the cohort, like even Tanai and I, like we've been connecting. And I think I heard that there's a difference between mentorship and sponsorship. I just feel like it's both with this program. Jessica really, like, you know, having someone grab your hand and lift you up and like carry you with them. It's again, I don't know what else to compare it to. It's been so helpful. She puts my name in whenever I'm not in the room. She's written my recommendation letters. She's connected with me, connecting me with other leaders over the world whenever I'm looking for a position. So it's just been a solid relationship. Anything else? Any other questions? Well, great question, Rama. Rama asks, how did you benefit from the guest speakers that were selected during your time? I remember, so who do I pick? So every month there was someone new, right? Right, Kevin? Am I remembering correctly? So we got, there was one session with International School Services, right? With Pauline and Beth. And they helped us, Beth met with me and went over my CV and gave me so many wonderful recommendations. It was like, I want to say free coaching. It was like free consultation advice. It was very helpful, and also kind of catering your CV in a way to show not just writing what you want, but kind of showing what kind of position you want to get into. And that was very helpful to me. I thought I had to just list everything I've done, but instead, like you want to show that, like, for example, I'm more interested in like people and culture and that aspect of things. So there are ways to showcase that on the CV that I learned from Beth. That was helpful. I think Alan Knobloch came, talked about crisis management. And again, this was during COVID time. So it was very helpful to hear from the head of school on how to do things on the ground and what the impact of something like a worldwide crisis, like a COVID pandemic would be. Yeah, that was really helpful to me. Those are the ones I remember off the top of my head. Sorry, I don't remember the other ones. But every session was amazing, and just being able to connect with my mentor after it and touch base and ask questions, like it was really helpful. The format was wonderful.
And what Nayoung is representing in Rama is we hold community sessions once a month. And so that is where we invite guest speakers in from the ecosystem, wide range of topics that leaders deal with, again, in that training capacity. And it's usually they do talks from 30 to 45 minutes, followed up with a Q&A. We record them. So if you can't attend live, we record them, and we have a platform. Our learning platform is with School Spot. So we post any material. So it might be their presentation, as well as the recording is all there. So everyone has access to all those materials as well.
And I have to say the speakers, I can see, like, as you announce them, I have serious FOMO because I'm not part of the cohort anymore, but I'm like, oh, I want to go to that one. I want to go to that one. Any other questions?
I'll hop in here. Talk to us about your final capstone project in terms of like the closing.
Okay, thank you for that question. I was particularly proud of mine. So after having that relationship with my mentor for I think like what, like I would say 8, 9 months, we're given a stretch assignment as part of the program. And my stretch assignment happened to be how to start caucuses, how to maintain them, how to essentially manage them. I think a lot of people know it as more like affinity groups, but caucuses are more about like movement building and building capacity in the people. And I did almost like a mini qualitative research on the identities of the caucus members and how we managed to be together with all our different identities, how all of our privileged identities and our systemically minoritized identities impacted our group dynamic. Yeah, so that was my stretch assignment. I still actually kind of refer back to the slide that I created. I just did for this conference that we're presenting at. There's a Faculty Women of Color in Academics conference that I'll be presenting at with my doctoral mentors. And I still go back to it because just the things I learned from that experience, having a mentor of color, a sponsor of color, and experiencing that, learning from it, and then making it a lifelong learning experience to keep building on it. So long story short, yeah, it was a very darkening experience. I absolutely loved it. And it was a big challenge. And I appreciated that my mentor was able to see what I needed to work on, which is why it's called a stretch assignment. So I really appreciate that opportunity. Thank you, Kevin, for the question.
Definitely. And again, the stretch assignments built in early on. We sort of say identify something that within your scope, within your space, whether it's on your grade level team, within your area, elementary, middle school, secondary, curriculum, governance. Pick something you want to get smarter about, something that doesn't exist right now in your own ecosystem as a school, and have that be your stretch assignment and encouraging folks to do that. Tico Ohms did a phenomenal masterclass yesterday for aspiring leaders. It will be on our YouTube in the coming week. Look out for it. It was a brilliant session, y'all. And again, he spoke to a lot of different ways around like just getting recognized, doing the work, again, volunteering for those things at times when it's like, when people like, that sounds like it's extra work. But again, sometimes it's like, I'm not gonna raise my hand 20 times, but oh, this one thing I want to learn more about, budgeting, governance, like Tanai talked about. So it's things that we sometimes, if we're in a classroom or we're a team leader, we might not be directly involved in. Accreditation, taking on something that, again, you want to learn more about, you want to get smarter about, but also it's going to like get you noticed. I think that was the big thing too that Tico was talking about yesterday, and then leads to that capstone. So some of our folks picked that stretch assignment, and that led right to their capstone project, which is great. And they present that and share that out as at the very sort of the closing of the program. Any other questions? Let's talk about time. So Nayang, about how much time connecting with your mentor did you spend like in a month?
Yeah, so again, my mentorship became a friendship, so I couldn't like count the hours, but I would say it was like work-wise, it was about maybe 2 hours a month. And that's including some of the meeting times. As we came closer to sharing our capstone projects, it was a little longer, obviously. But because I think when we navigate these international schools, so much of our identities are at play. Like we can't separate our personal from professional at these international schools. So a lot of the work that I ended up doing for the program was something that I was doing already anyway. So making that a capstone and kind of presenting it that way and being a part of the network of the mentors and mentees. Yeah, I mean, not a minute was wasted. Everything was very efficient. Yeah, so I'd say 2 to maybe up to 5 hours a month. That's what I spent. And my mentor and I met at least for an hour every month, at least, sometimes even every 2 weeks, depending on the capacity that we had.
Thank you. One thing we do, I don't know if we did it year one, it might have come year two and then three. We do more, well, we definitely, again, the alumni folks that have matriculated through the program, again, highlight, amplify them. One thing that Na Young was talking about, made reference to, is presenting. So we, again, getting noticed. We want to make sure that we do like this sort of shout outs in our sessions, our one-on-one community sessions now. And it's giving folks a chance to sort of say, hey, I'm presenting here, I'm going to be on this podcast, I'm working on this article, I'm working on this research, so then others can hear and see, and they might be like, oh, I'm interested in that, oh, tell me more about that. But also to say, hey, we want to make sure that folks are getting noticed. And so we can like retweet you, we can share you out, whatever it is. Or if it's like, hey, I'm interested in doing more of this. Again, it's a chance for folks within the community to reach out and to share across, because that's our thing. Is like, again, it's that getting noticing and making sure that those, as I like to call it nowadays, those leadership deposits are made. So whether it's like, oh, I'm going to do this article with Ty Online, oh, Going Global's asked me to interview for this podcast, or we have our school podcast or something that, you know, is getting started. So again, making sure that we're constantly putting in those leadership deposits, because as Na Young said, your resume, a lot of resumes we just list, I was this teacher, I did this stuff. Leadership's different. It's like, no, don't tell me, show me. You know, as a result of doing this, you know, I was part of establishing the new SEL curriculum at our school and what that entailed, you know, and then what was the turnover. So being very intentional around how what you're doing is really highlighted on like things such as your CV and getting that feedback.
Yeah, and to add to that, actually, I think it was this program that even helped me get accepted to the Emerging Leaders Program for ASCD, which is more US based. But I'm not gonna lie, this program is better than the other one. Wait, can I? Is being recorded? But yeah, this is so intentional. It centers us as people of color. So I really appreciated that about this program.
Na Young, it's funny. It is. I know what you mean. It's ASCD has some emerging leaders. They have folks. It's mostly U.S., but they do have some folks internationally who are part of it. And it's one that we sort of highlight and we sort of say, hey, here's another opportunity, because you're connected with other folks all over the world, really. But it's like, again, one of those other opportunities. And we're now doing some work. We're talking to, it's the Association of International School Heads, AAIE, some of these international school groups that have been in existence. But again, we might not have had space. We might not have been seen as part of the Gold Majority, but we're really talking to them around like partnership and what can we offer, especially for folks who are alumni and folks who are finishing, who might say, hey, I'm interested in becoming a director or a head, or, ooh, I want to learn more about this. They have courses, they have things, or on the side of community sessions, inviting in guest speakers and mentors who are part of it. So really, again, being intentional around looking and seeing who are some of those international school leadership organizations. And then some of the partners we've had, AAIE, ECIS, ISS has sponsored every single year. And when I say sponsor, writes a check, like invest heavily. So they invest in scholarships. Our goal, Nadine, and our goal every year is to try as much as possible to make sure that no one pays. ALOC school members do get priority in terms of the application. So because that's a requirement. So if you're an ALOC school member, it is a requirement that you are identifying at least 1 to 2 aspiring leaders of color in your building who are going to be part of this program. And then those ALOC school members they pay for their folks, unless we get 100% scholarships to cover them. So our goal is always to make sure that cost is not an issue. The program right now is $800 for the entire year. But like I said, we've had ECIS, School Spot sponsors the platform for free. They did that every single year and said that they will continue to do that. But AAIE, ECIS, we have partnerships with all the accreditation organizations. So NEAS, CIS, and Middle States now came on. So anyone who wants to become a part of accreditation, because again, that's an aspect of that leadership work. So anyone who's not trained, if you're in a CIS school, you get CIX access. There tends to be a wait list. There's a lot of people doing those trainings. But regardless, even if you're in an alumni program, you can go back. I know Rama and Na Young just completed that evaluator training. Middle States, I know people that just messaged said they're now doing the Middle States training as well as NEAS. So you have access to all of that. And again, we're continuing looking at ways to grow and who else we need to partner with around the work.
Yeah, Kevin, you make a good point. Like having this on your resume, for me personally, has also been helpful because it literally says aspiring leader of color. So having that as my identity, as part of one of my identities, and just putting myself out there, to me, again, I feel like it helped me get the position with the CIS accreditation evaluator program. and various other things that have come since then. Well worth the investment, I would say.
Great question. So she asked Nayoung, have you kept in touch with your cohort mates? Did you have a chance to connect outside of the program?
Yeah, that's a good question. Oh, I think Tanai's the only one that I've kept with actually kept up with intention more consistently. I know Bianca is also in Singapore American School. I think we also arrived there at the same time. We were more in touch, I think, when I was physically there. Jailene, right? I don't know if we connected more in the beginning, like during the program, and then there's Diana, and now she's in Texas, right? Leader in Texas. So I think we also kind of bonded as mentees. And then again, I also appreciated that it wasn't just Jessica that was my mentor. What I would meet during the community meetings, like I would see all of the other mentees mentors, and that was also a learning experience, learning how they all, yeah, mentored. Does that answer your question? Oh, did we have a chance to connect outside of the program? Most of them I have not seen in person actually, but I'm sure it's gonna be like almost any other ALOC meeting where we see each other. We're like, oh my God, I know you. Big hugs. Yeah. That answers your question.
Yeah, and what Nayoung was saying reference to is so I know Dr. Jailene is now leading DEIJ work in Japan. Nayoung's in her doctoral program. Tanai entered a doctoral program as well, but again, it's looking at other potential, leadership opportunities. Deanna's now an assistant head at International School in Houston, Texas. Bianca became a curriculum coach at Singapore American. I mean, this is just examples of people who matriculated through the program. We got Serenity just became a lead of SEN in Ghana. So there is movement. Our thing is like, even if it doesn't happen right away at the end of the program, you still have access to us. You still have access to our recruitment platform, which is free. Anyone can register. That's number one. So you have access to that. And that focused on our ALOC school members. And it's still new and being built. And then again, you still have access to your mentors, others who are part of the program, those who lead those community sessions. So we just want to make sure that folks know that it's not, for us, like I said, it's not just the year, it's continuing. And then one thing I know we're going to do, Nadine and I have been talking about this, is I know we're doing a mentor meetup, but we're also talking about doing like an alumni sort of meetup as well. It'll be virtual for now because we want to get as many people, we know people are all over, but an alumni meetup before the end of this academic year. And if it doesn't happen because we don't have a couple months left, it'll happen at the very beginning of the next year. So that, again, you all can interact and virtually fellowship. Any other questions? All right. Well, thank you, good people, for attending. Like we said, you will be the first, whoever signed up for this session will be the first to receive the applications for the 2024-2025 cohort 4, which we start in our first community sessions are in September. And again, they're virtually, and we do applications are usually due by the first part of June. Application, just to give you background, it's usually a 2-minute video introducing yourself. And just some information about you, and we do a reference, and again, you pick it. You pick who can be a reference and your resume, and you turn that in. And again, like I said, we work behind the scenes, Nadine and I, around like just, as much as possible, getting scholarships. And our thing is like, we don't want cost to be an issue or a factor. So like I said, we focus on like our partner schools and any partners covering those costs. Thank you all. If you have any other questions, feel free. I'm gonna drop the email over here.
I've dropped my LinkedIn or email as well. If you have any questions, don't hesitate. No questions too small.
All right. Thank y'all. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. We appreciate y'all.